From the precision-engineered masterpieces of German craftsmanship to the desperate, crudely stamped weapons of the war's final days, this is the complete story of Germany's World War II arsenal. Every weapon they fielded, from the iconic to the obscure, revealed in one comprehensive video. We'll journey through the evolution of an army's armament, from the early days of Blitzkrieg to the desperate defense of the fatherland. This is not just a catalog of weapons. It's the story of innovation, desperation, and the technological race that defined the largest conflict in human history: pistols and sidearms. Let's begin with the weapons that German soldiers carried closest to their bodies: pistols and sidearms. Luger P08. The iconic Luger pistol, with its distinctive toggle lock action and elegant profile, was the most prized war trophy among Allied soldiers. First adopted in 1908, this 9mm semi-automatic pistol was renowned for its exceptional craftsmanship and accuracy. However, its complex mechanism, requiring over 50 precisely machined parts, made it expensive and time-consuming to produce. In the dirt and mud of the Eastern Front, its tight tolerances sometimes became a liability, as the weapon could jam when exposed to extreme conditions. Walther P38, designed specifically to replace the costly Luger, the Walther P38 represented a shift toward practicality over prestige. Introduced in 1938, it featured a simpler design with fewer parts, a double-action trigger mechanism, and better reliability in harsh conditions. Its exposed barrel and slide made it easier to maintain in the field, and it was significantly cheaper to manufacture. By mid-war, the P38 had become the standard German military sidearm, though the Luger continued to be produced and issued throughout the conflict. Walther PP and PPK, the Polizeipistole and Polizeipistole Kriminal models, served primarily as sidearms for high-ranking officers, military police, detectives, and Luftwaffe personnel. The PP, introduced in 1929, was one of the first successful double-action semi-automatic pistols. The PPK variant, smaller and more compact, became famously associated with covert operations and plainclothes security forces. Its compact size made it ideal for concealed carry, though its smaller .32 ACP or .380 ACP caliber offered less stopping power than full-sized military pistols. Mauser C96, known universally as the broom handle due to its distinctive wooden holster stock, the C96 was an aging design by World War II, having been introduced way back in 1896. While no longer a frontline weapon, it still saw service with support units, officers who privately purchased them before the war, and in certain theaters where any firearm was valuable. Its unique appearance and powerful 7.63mm Mauser cartridge made it distinctive on any battlefield. Mauser HSC, the Hans Selbst Spanner pistol, Model C, was a compact, reliable double-action pistol introduced in 1938. Its sleek design, concealed hammer, and smooth lines made it popular with police forces and naval personnel who needed a dependable sidearm in confined spaces. Though it saw limited military service compared to larger pistols, its quality construction ensured it remained in production throughout the war. Sauer 38H, featuring a unique ducking lever that allowed safe lowering of the hammer on a chambered round, the Sauer 38H was a streamlined, high-quality pistol. It became particularly popular among Luftwaffe and Wehrmacht staff officers who appreciated its safety features and excellent craftsmanship. The H designation stood for Hahn or hammer, distinguishing it from hammerless designs. Dreyse M1907, an aging pistol design that predated World War I, the Dreyse saw use primarily by rear echelon troops, police forces, and garrison units during World War II. Its continued service reflected Germany's severe shortage of firearms and the necessity of fielding any available sidearm as the war progressed and losses mounted. Submachine guns, moving to close-quarters combat weapons, the submachine guns that became synonymous with German warfare. MP38, the Maschinenpistole 38, was the first major German submachine gun of the war, introducing revolutionary concepts in firearms design. Its distinctive ribbed receiver and folding stock simplified construction compared to earlier weapons, though it remained a relatively complex design requiring skilled machinists. The MP38 was initially issued primarily to paratroopers, vehicle crews, and platoon leaders. MP40, an evolution of the MP38, The MP40 optimized production through even greater use of stamped steel parts and simplified assembly. This iconic weapon became synonymous with the Blitzkrieg soldier and German infantry throughout the war. Chambered in 9mm parabellum with a 32-round magazine, it could fire at 500 to 550 rounds per minute. Despite popular misconception, it fired only in semi-automatic and full automatic modes, not in bursts. Over 1 million were produced during the war, making it one of the most common German weapons. MP18, the grand patriarch of submachine guns, the MP18I was the world's first true practical submachine gun, introduced in the final year of World War I. Though ancient by 1939 standards, it was still issued to garrison units, police forces, and second-line troops throughout the early 1940s, testament to Germany's need for any available small arms. MP28. A refinement of the MP18 developed in the interwar years, the MP28 featured a 30-round box magazine, improved sights, and a selector switch for semi- and full automatic fire. It was a common weapon in the early years of World War II, particularly among police units and some Wehrmacht formations, before being gradually replaced by more modern designs. MP34. Primarily an Austrian design adopted by Germany after the Anschluss, the MP34 was particularly favored by SS units. Beautifully machined with exceptional quality, was unfortunately extremely costly to produce. Its complex construction and lengthy manufacturing time led to its eventual phase-out in favor of simpler, cheaper designs as the war economy shifted toward mass production. MP35. Another early war design often confused with the MP34. The MP35 featured a unique bolt-action style loading handle positioned on its right side. Developed by Bergmann, it saw service primarily with Waffen-SS units and police forces before being superseded by more economical weapons. MP3008, representing the absolute nadir of German weapons production. Late-war submachine guns were desperately simplified. These crudely stamped weapons used the minimal amount of high-quality components, relying on simple blowback actions and rudimentary construction to produce functional firearms quickly. MP3008, Germany's final, most desperate submachine gun, was a direct, cheap copy of the British Sten gun. Built rapidly during the final months of the war, often in underground factories, the MP3008 represented the complete abandonment of German precision manufacturing traditions. Constructed almost entirely from stamped metal parts that could be produced by semi-skilled workers, it was functional but crude, a stark symbol of Germany's industrial collapse. Rifles and carbines. Now we examine the backbone of any infantry force. Rifles. Carabiner 98K, the standard-issue German rifle for the entire war. The Kar 98K was a reliable, high-quality, bolt-action workhorse that served on every front from the frozen steppes of Russia to the scorching deserts of North Africa. A shortened version of the Gewehr 98, it fired the powerful 7.92 by 57mm Mauser cartridge with excellent accuracy out to 500 meters. Over 14 million were produced, and it remains one of the most recognized rifles of World War II. Its robust construction meant it could function in any climate, and its simple bolt-action mechanism could be maintained even by poorly trained troops. Gewehr 98, the predecessor to the Kar 98K, the Gewehr 98 was longer but otherwise similar in function. It saw widespread service, especially with reserve units, fortress garrisons, and rear-line units that needed armaments. Many G98s were cut down and converted to Kar 98K specifications during the war years. Gewehr 30-40, a shorter, lighter rifle adapted from Czech designs after the occupation of Czechoslovakia, the G33-40 was the preferred weapon of mountain troops, Gebirgsjäger, due to its compact size and reduced weight. It maintained the same powerful 7.92mm cartridge as the Kar 98K but was more maneuverable in alpine terrain. Gewehr 41 M&W, Germany's first serious attempt at a semi-automatic infantry rifle, came in two competing designs, the Mauser Model 41M and the Walther Model 41W. Both proved notoriously complex, heavy, and unreliable in combat conditions. They used an unusual gas trap system that was prone to fouling and malfunction. Few were produced, and combat troops quickly lost faith in them. Gewehr 43. Learning from the G41's failures and incorporating features from captured Soviet SVT-40 rifles, the G43 was a much more successful semi-automatic design. It utilized a reliable gas piston system, was lighter than the G41, and could accept a telescopic sight for sniper use. Though never produced in sufficient quantities to replace the Kar-98K, it was highly valued by troops lucky enough to receive one, offering significantly increased firepower. Sturmgewehr 44, arguably the first true assault rifle and one of the most influential firearms ever designed, the STG-44 introduced the intermediate cartridge concept to modern warfare. Chambered in the 7.92 33mm Kurds round, it provided controllable automatic fire at medium ranges, filling the gap between submachine guns and full-power rifles. Despite Hitler's initial opposition to the program, over 400,000 were eventually produced. It influenced virtually every assault rifle that followed, from the AK-47 to the M16. Fallschirmjägergewehr 42, a revolutionary, highly versatile weapon designed specifically for German paratroopers, the FG-42 could operate as a rifle, light machine gun, or close-quarters weapon. It featured an unusual straight-line stock design to reduce muzzle climb, a side-mounted magazine, and a bipod for sustained fire. Though brilliant in concept, it was complex and expensive to produce, and relatively few saw service. Those who used it, however, praised its versatility and firepower. Volkssturmgewehr 125. Part of the desperate final war effort, these People's Storm rifles were extremely simplified, crudely built semi-automatic rifles issued to the Volkssturm, Germany's last-ditch home guard force composed of teenagers and old men. Designed to use minimal materials and be produced by non-specialized workshops, they represented the final degradation of German small arms manufacturing standards. Machine guns, the weapons that dominated the battlefield through sheer firepower. Machine guns. MG-34, a masterpiece of machining and engineering, the MG-34 was highly complex but incredibly versatile. It served as both a light machine gun with bipod and a heavy machine gun on tripod, firing the same 7.92mm round as German rifles at rates up to 900 rounds per minute. Its quick change barrel system allowed sustained fire, and its excellent accuracy made it feared by Allied infantry. However, its complex construction and tight tolerances made it expensive and time-consuming to produce. MG-42, nicknamed Hitler's buzzsaw by Allied troops due to its distinctive sound, the MG-42 was designed specifically for mass production using stamped metal parts. It achieved a terrifying rate of fire, up to 1,200 rounds per minute, that dominated infantry firefights across all fronts. The psychological impact of its sound alone was significant. Its simple, robust design made it cheaper and faster to produce than the MG-34, and it proved extremely reliable even in harsh conditions. Many consider it the finest machine gun of World War II, and its basic design remains in service with modern militaries today as the MG-3. MG-08, a venerable, water-cooled heavy machine gun dating back to World War I, the MG-08 was a German version of the Maxim gun. Though obsolete for mobile warfare, it still served in static defensive positions, fortress emplacements, and coastal defenses where its sustained fire capability and reliability remained valuable. MG-13, a conversion of the obsolete World War I-era Dries light machine gun. The MG-13 was used primarily for training purposes or by secondary garrison units. Its dated design and limitations meant it was quickly retired from frontline service once more modern weapons became available. MG-15. Originally designed as an aircraft gun for bombers, the MG-15 was often repurposed for ground use, particularly by Luftwaffe ground forces and airfield defense units. Its 75-round saddle drum, magazine, and air-cooled barrel made it distinctive, though it was not ideal for sustained ground combat. MG-81, an extremely high rate of fire machine gun designed specifically for aircraft turrets and defensive positions on bombers, the MG-81 could fire up to 1,500 rounds per minute. It saw limited conversion to ground use late in the conflict, particularly in dual-mounted configurations for fortress and bunker defense. MG-45, a fascinating, highly simplified prototype machine gun, The MG45 aimed to be the successor to the MG42. It used even less raw material through innovative stamped construction and boasted an astonishing cyclic rate of fire, exceeding 1,800 rounds per minute. Though only prototypes were produced before war's end, it demonstrated remarkable engineering innovation, even as Germany's situation became hopeless. MG08-15. The lightweight version of the MG08, though lightweight was relative, it still weighed over 30 pounds. Like its predecessor, this water-cooled heavy machine gun was relegated to static defense roles throughout the war, particularly in fortified positions and bunkers where its sustained fire capability outweighed its immobility. Grenades and explosives, the close-range and area denial weapons that shaped infantry tactics. Steel-Hand Granite 24, the iconic stick grenade, nicknamed the potato masher by Allied troops, is perhaps the most recognizable German weapon after the Luger. Its wooden handle allowed soldiers to throw it significantly farther than traditional egg-shaped grenades, up to 40 meters. The design also ensured it was less likely to roll back down hills or into trenches after landing. The handle contained the friction igniter, while the explosive head was filled with TNT. Steel-Hand Granite 43, a simplified late-war version of the stick grenade, the Model 43 omitted the belt clip and some safety features to speed up manufacturing during critical shortages. The wartime economy forced such compromises across all German weapons production, prioritizing quantity over refinement. A-Hand Granite 39, nicknamed the egg grenade, this small, compact, oval-shaped grenade was easier to carry in large quantities than the heavier stick variants. Soldiers could carry multiple egg grenades in pockets or pouches, making them ideal for close-quarters combat and building clearing operations. They proved particularly valuable in urban warfare. Geballte Ladung, literally meaning concentrated charge. This was a bundle of 6 stick grenade heads wired around a single activated handle. Used primarily for bunker busting and attacking fortified positions, it delivered a massive explosive force. Assault engineers and pioneer units regularly employed these improvised super grenades against strong points and pillboxes. S-mine, shrapnel mine, famously nicknamed the Bouncing Betty by terrified Allied troops, this diabolical device was one of the war's most feared weapons. When triggered by a tripwire or pressure, it launched approximately 1 meter into the air before detonating at waist height, spraying 360 degrees of lethal shrapnel at the most vulnerable parts of soldiers' bodies. The psychological impact of this weapon was immense. Tellermine series, Germany's standard anti-tank mine series, with designations reflecting the model year, Tellermine 35, 42, 43. Each iteration provided better resistance to handling and detection. These large, disc-shaped mines contained enough explosive to destroy or disable tank tracks and suspension systems. Millions were laid in defensive minefields across Europe. Regal Mine 43, known as the Regal Mine or shoebox mine due to its long rectangular shape. This anti-tank mine was highly efficient and effective against tank tracks. Its shape meant that tracked vehicles were almost certain to trigger it, and it was difficult to clear due to its low profile. Goliath, a remote-controlled demolition vehicle, the Goliath was essentially a small, motorized bomb driven into enemy positions via cable control and then detonated for massive anti-fortification effects. Though innovative, they proved expensive to produce and vulnerable to small arms fire during their approach. 2 versions existed, one electrically powered, one with a small gasoline engine. Blendkörper 1H and 2H. Smoke and blinding grenades used effectively to obscure infantry movements to temporarily disorient and blind tank crews during assaults. These were particularly valuable in urban combat where line-of-sight advantages were crucial. Schuhmine 42, a simple, mass-produced anti-personnel mine made mostly of wood with minimal metal components. This made it extremely difficult for Allied combat engineers to detect with standard metal detectors, causing significant casualties among advancing troops. Glasmine 43, an anti-personnel mine designed with a concrete or glass casing, further complicating mine-clearing operations for Allied forces. With virtually no metal signature, these weapons were nearly impossible to detect with contemporary mine detection equipment. Betonmine 43, essentially a concrete-cased mine with minimal metal content, yet another German effort to defeat meet standard metal detection equipment in the later stages of the war. These represented the evolution of mine warfare toward non-metallic designs. Splitter ring, a simple metal accessory that could be fitted around stick grenades. The splitter ring significantly increased the shrapnel and fragmentation effect upon detonation, making the grenade far more lethal against personnel in the open. Improvised incendiaries. Simple incendiary bottles or Molotov cocktails were used by Volkssturm and desperate soldiers against armored vehicles when specialized anti-tank weapons were unavailable. These represented last-ditch efforts against overwhelming Allied armor superiority in the war's final months. Knives and bayonets. Finally, the most ancient weapons of war, updated for modern combat. Seitengewehr 98K, the standard issue bayonet for the Kar 98K rifle. Every German infantryman was trained in its use and carried one as essential gear. These bayonets could also function as fighting knives and utility tools, with many soldiers using them for everyday tasks. Seitengewehr Chapter 42, a late-war multi-purpose bayonet knife designed to function both as a combat knife and a handy wire cutter, increasing its utility on the modern battlefield. Wire cutting capability was particularly valuable, given the extensive use of barbed wire in defensive positions. Kampfmesser 42, a specialized double-edged fighting knife introduced late in the war specifically for close-quarters combat needs. It was issued primarily to specialized troops, including commandos, assault engineers, and reconnaissance units who were likely to engage in hand-to-hand fighting. Fliegerkampfmesser, the gravity knife carried by Fallschirmjäger paratroopers. Designed to be operated with one hand, it was used primarily for cutting parachute lines if a paratrooper became tangled during landing, but also served general utility purposes. Its spring-loaded blade could be deployed quickly in emergency situations. Seitengewehr 8498, a simplified emergency bayonet produced during the war's later stages, minimizing material usage while maintaining essential close-quarters fighting capability for troops. Like many late-war German weapons, it reflected the increasing scarcity of resources and the desperate economic situation. From the precision-crafted weapons of 1939 to the crude, desperate arms of 1945, German World War II weaponry tells a story of innovation, adaptation, and ultimately overwhelming industrial exhaustion. These weapons armed one of history's most formidable military forces, and their influence, particularly designs like the STG-44 and MG-42, continues to shape modern warfare. This was every weapon used by German forces in World War II.